Autumn in London always carried an indescribable charm. Golden leaves fluttered down along cobblestone streets, carpeting the ground with their delicate hues. The crisp, chilly air mingled with the sweet aroma of coffee wafting from cozy cafes tucked into the city's historic corners. Covent Garden, as usual, buzzed with energy. Street performers entertained gathered crowds, their vibrant acts competing with the chatter of strolling tourists. Amid this lively scene, Emily Carter hurried into the small cafe where she worked, her breath visible in the cool morning air. Emily, at 25, had come to London from northern England with nothing but her modest dreams and an unshakable determination. Her soft brown hair was neatly tied back, and her petite frame moved swiftly as she donned her apron and got to work. Life in London had not been easy for Emily. After her family faced a devastating financial crisis, she had taken on the responsibility of supporting them. Her younger brother, Michael, lay in the hospital after a serious accident, and Emily worked tirelessly to cover his medical expenses. Although she often felt lost in the sprawling metropolis, she clung to her hope and faced each day with a warm smile. Behind her sparkling eyes, however, lingered a quiet exhaustion, a burden she never shared with anyone. As Emily settled into her shift, the cafe door swung open, letting in a sharp gust of wind and a tall figure dressed impeccably in a dark tailored suit. Alexander Bennett, a 28-year-old entrepreneur, entered with a commanding presence that immediately turned heads. His chiseled features and piercing eyes spoke of confidence and success, yet there was an unmistakable melancholy in his demeanor. Born into a powerful family, Alexander lived in the opulent neighborhood of Kensington. Despite his wealth and status, he often felt suffocated by the weight of his responsibilities and the haunting pain of losing his mother at a young age. Covent Garden had become his sanctuary, a place where he could find a semblance of peace amid the city's relentless noise. Alexander's sharp gaze swept across the cafe before he chose a quiet table in the corner. He placed his sleek leather briefcase on the chair beside him and pulled out his laptop. The device contained critical documents for a high-stakes project that demanded his undivided attention. As he began typing, his focus narrowed, and the world around him seemed to fade away. Meanwhile, Emily was too busy attending to customers to notice the new arrival. Her shift was in full swing, and she darted between tables, balancing trays of steaming coffee and plates of pastries. As she approached a table near Alexander's, carrying a tray laden with cups, her foot caught on a bag carelessly left on the floor. Time seemed to slow as she stumbled, the tray tilting precariously. One of the cups tipped over, its contents spilling directly onto Alexander's table and soaking his expensive laptop. A collective gasp rippled through the cafe as Alexander stood abruptly, his previously composed expression hardening into one of fury. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded, his deep voice cutting through the murmurs of the other patrons. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Emily, who stood frozen in shock, her cheeks flushing crimson. "I'm so sorry," Emily stammered, her voice trembling as she grabbed a cloth and began dabbing at the table. "I didn't mean to." Her efforts only seemed to make matters worse, spreading the mess further. Alexander's jaw tightened as he watched her frantic attempts to fix the situation. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he said coldly. "This laptop contains vital work. A simple apology isn't enough." Emily's heart sank. She could feel the weight of every stare in the room, the whispered comments cutting through her like knives. Her manager hurried over, apologizing profusely to Alexander and promising to handle the situation. But Alexander barely acknowledged him. With a curt shake of his head, he packed up his damp laptop and left the cafe, leaving Emily standing there, guilt weighing heavily on her shoulders. That tense encounter lingered in Emily's mind long after her shift ended. She replayed the scene over and over, each detail amplifying her sense of failure. Little did she know, however, that this seemingly disastrous meeting would mark the beginning of a story far more significant than she could have ever imagined. Alexander, despite his outwardly cold demeanor, couldn't ignore Emily's resilience. He first noticed it by chance when visiting a friend undergoing treatment at the same hospital as Emily's younger brother. On his way to the ward, he saw Emily seated by her brother's bedside, reading softly from a book. Her eyes shone with both exhaustion and love, yet there wasn't the slightest trace of bitterness. The image stayed with him, leaving him deeply unsettled. It was then that Alexander realized Emily was far more than she appeared, a delicate exterior concealing a core of strength and responsibility. From that day on, Alexander found himself returning to the cafe more often. Yet, his visits were no longer for work. Instead, he chose secluded corners where he could quietly observe Emily as she worked. Sometimes he left generous tips or paid for meals she ordered during her shifts without saying a word. At first, Emily noticed these acts with suspicion, convinced Alexander might be acting out of guilt over their initial encounter. One late evening, as the cafe was about to close, Alexander approached Emily directly. "I don't come here just for the coffee," he admitted, his voice low but sincere. His words caught Emily off guard, filling her with both surprise and a touch of wariness. From that moment, their conversations grew more frequent. Emily began to see beyond Alexander's polished surface. Beneath the confident, successful exterior lay a lonely and wounded soul. Late one evening, as they spoke in hushed tones, Alexander opened up about his past. He told Emily how his mother had passed away when he was only 10, leaving a void in his heart that nothing could fill. His father had remarried a wealthy, ambitious woman who cared more about appearances than affection. Alexander grew up in a grand yet loveless house, burdened with the expectation of maintaining the family's reputation. Every time he tried to express his true feelings, they were dismissed, further forcing him to construct the cold facade that now defined him. Their bond deepened over time, but it wasn't without challenges. Alexander's family soon discovered his growing relationship with Emily. His stepmother, a powerful and calculating woman, was furious. "You cannot let a girl like that tarnish our family's name," she said bluntly, her voice dripping with disdain. She pressured Alexander relentlessly, setting up meetings with suitable marriage prospects and openly criticizing Emily. For the first time, Alexander pushed back. Facing his stepmother, he declared, "I refuse to live a life dictated by others' expectations. I choose my happiness." Meanwhile, Emily began to feel the strain of the situation. One day, she received an invitation to meet Alexander's stepmother at an upscale restaurant. The encounter was far from friendly. "If you truly care about Alexander, you'll leave him," the older woman said sharply. "You don't belong in this world." Though deeply hurt, Emily held her composure. "I have no intention of hurting Alexander," she replied, her voice steady. "But I won't accept being treated with such disrespect." Her gaze was unyielding, filled with quiet pride. The conflicts surrounding their relationship only strengthened their resolve to be together. But both Alexander and Emily knew the road ahead would be anything but easy. Alexander's stepmother, determined to tear them apart, orchestrated a devious plan. She hired a man to impersonate someone from Emily's past, spreading false claims that she had manipulated people for financial gain. Carefully fabricated evidence was sent to Alexander, planting seeds of doubt despite his efforts to trust Emily. One evening, under the soft glow of a desk lamp, the atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. Alexander sat across from Emily, his hands clenched tightly on his knees as though trying to steady himself. His sharp eyes were a storm of conflicting emotions, anger, pain, and confusion. He looked directly at Emily as if searching for the truth in her tear-filled gaze, which reflected a mix of hurt and helplessness. "Is there something you haven't told me, Emily?" Alexander asked, his voice low and hoarse, a plea masked in suspicion. I need to know the truth. Emily, seated on the opposite chair, lowered her head. Her hands trembled as they gripped the edge of her dress. Tears threatened to spill as she raised her eyes to meet his, her voice trembling yet resolute. Do you really think I could do something like that? After everything we've been through, you still can't trust me? Hurt by Alexander's doubt, Emily felt as if all their efforts to build trust had crumbled. Despite her attempts to explain, his cold and conflicted gaze made it clear that things had changed. If you can't trust me, then maybe we shouldn't continue, she said, her voice breaking but firm. That night, Emily walked away with a broken heart but unyielding pride. She refused to cling to a relationship where she felt disrespected. Alexander stood frozen behind the closed door, realizing too late that his words had deeply wounded the woman he loved. For Emily, life became a blur of caring for her brother and working at the café. Yet every time her hands touched a coffee cup, memories of Alexander surfaced. Moments would catch her off guard, her gaze drifting aimlessly as she searched for his familiar silhouette among the bustling crowds. Her longing for him was a persistent ache, a quiet torment that refused to fade. Alexander, outwardly composed, was a storm within. He spent nights in his office, unable to focus on his work, his gaze lingering on the empty chair where Emily once sat. Occasionally, he glanced out the large window, half expecting to see her walking by. The emptiness gnawed at him, making him realize how integral she had become to his life. Both were trapped in a vortex of regret and longing. Places they had visited together and shared memories now felt like wounds that refused to heal. Alexander, knowing he had been wrong, struggled to find a way to mend the broken trust. But his pride and familial pressures held him back. Emily, though determined to appear strong, couldn't stop her heart from yearning for the man she had once loved so deeply. They seemed worlds apart, yet true love seldom fades easily. As misunderstandings began to unravel, a glimmer of hope emerged amidst the despair. Just days before a critical family meeting, Alexander received a call from James, a trusted and loyal employee. James had been one of the first people Alexander helped in his career, offering him a chance when no one else would. Over the phone, James's voice quivered with urgency. Mr. Bennett, I need to speak to you immediately. There's a truth I can't keep hidden any longer. They met at a quiet cafe, away from the prying eyes of Alexander's family. James slid a thick file across the table, his hands trembling. I've been under immense pressure from your stepmother. She threatened me to stay silent, but I can't live with myself knowing this could destroy your happiness. This file contains the evidence of everything she's done. You deserve to know the truth. Meanwhile, Emily found herself unable to escape her feelings for Alexander. One rainy afternoon, as she cleaned the cafe counter, memories of their time together surfaced. She glanced out the window, lost in thought, when a familiar figure emerged from the downpour. Alexander stood in the rain, his coat soaked, but his eyes filled with determination and regret. Emily froze, unsure if she was dreaming. He stepped inside, his voice raw with emotion. If losing everything means having you, it's worth it. You're all I need. Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she whispered his name. Alexander, I'm sorry, he said, closing the distance between them. I was wrong to doubt you, wrong to let you go. Please, give me another chance. Emily's tears fell freely, but this time they were tears of joy. She reached out, her trembling hand touching his. We've been apart for too long. I don't want to run anymore. In that moment, the world seemed to fade away. The rain outside became a soothing melody as two hearts once broken found their way back to each other. Their love, tested but unyielding, had triumphed over every obstacle. After weathering storms that had tested their love and resolve, Alexander and Emily chose to leave the bustling chaos of London behind. They sought solace in a quaint seaside town, its rolling green hills and endless shores offering a tranquility they both longed for. Here, amidst the whispers of the ocean and the golden hues of dawn, they began building a life that was truly their own. Their dream materialized in the form of a small cafe, aptly named Serenade of Stories. Every corner of the cafe bore their personal touches, wooden tables crafted by Alexander's own hands, the walls adorned with Emily's photographs of the sea and their first days in the town. The cafe wasn't merely a place for coffee, it became a sanctuary where patrons found warmth, inspiration, and tales of enduring love. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the salty sea breeze as customers filled the cozy space. Emily often worked behind the counter, her warm smile welcoming every guest, while Alexander found joy in preparing artisanal dishes in the kitchen. Together, they infused their cafe with the same passion and care that had brought them through life's trials. Over time, Serenade of Stories became more than a cafe. It was a symbol of second chances, resilience, and the beauty of shared dreams. Locals and travelers alike found themselves drawn to its unique charm, often leaving with more than just a meal, a memory, a conversation, or even the inspiration to start anew. For Alexander and Emily, their cafe was not only the realization of their shared vision, but also a testament to their enduring love, a love that had triumphed over doubt, loss, and the pressures of the world to find peace and joy in its purest form. One afternoon, a young couple entered the cafe, settling into a cozy corner beneath a large framed painting. Inscribed beneath the artwork in elegant script were the words, "True love isn't about perfection, it's about persistence and faith." Emily, with her radiant smile, brought them their drinks, her presence as calming as the gentle crash of waves outside. From behind the counter, Alexander watched her, his gaze filled with an abiding affection and peace. The trials they had faced only deepened their bond, and every moment now was a testament to their shared journey. In their cafe, Alexander and Emily created more than just a business. They cultivated a symbol of hope. Their story, etched into every corner, inspired all who entered, a poignant reminder that love, when fought for and nurtured, could overcome even the greatest of challenges. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the sea and filling the cafe with a warm glow, Alexander and Emily exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of the life they had built together. Their shared laughter blended with the soft hum of conversations, the clinking of coffee cups, and the music of the ocean outside. Together, they embarked on a future brimming with promise, knowing that the best stories were yet to unfold. And just like their cafe's name suggested, Serenade of Stories would forever echo with tales of love, resilience, and the extraordinary beauty of two hearts beating as one.